It reminds me a little of the House of Commons, the racket in the background while I'm speaking. Yeah, no problem. I think there's a lot of stars in the room here today. I notice the photographers are having a lot of fun. You can see why. I do have to start on an important topic that a lot of Canadians are concerned about right now, because yesterday I said that the bankruptcy of a major bank in the United States, uncertainty in financial markets, and the devastating erosion of our real economy are all signs of how a conservative government is not doing its job. And Stephen Harper is bad for the economy, and that's because, just like George Bush, Stephen Harper thinks it's just fine with him if you lose your job or the electricity in the room. Thank God for battery packs. Ready to go? From the sublime. The fact is, Stephen Harper is bad for the economy because, just like George Bush, Stephen Harper thinks it's just fine if you lose your job. And that's the fundamental difference between him and I. Mr. Harper fights for the people who lay you off, and I'm ready to stand up for you and your family. Mr. Harper can visit the most hard-hit cities in our industrial heartland, as he's doing this week, and say everything is just fine. I go to the same cities, and I say that it's time for a change. It's time for a new Prime Minister who's actually going to stand up for you when you're losing your job and on the side of your family. Now, this brings me to the key economic announcement that I want to make today: investing in our children. It's wonderful to be here in Toronto in the East End Children's Centre, a drop-in centre that provides important services to families, to caregivers, to moms staying at home, to all kinds of different families, and quality programming that more kids should have access to, not just in big cities, but all over the country. And we're here today with moms and dads, with children, with caregivers, and with the staff and early childhood educators. And, of course, ordinary families and working people, they're looking towards the future. Aren't we? We're looking towards the future. Well, folks like you want to know how the parties in this election are going to help families to make ends meet and build a better country for tomorrow, because it's all about the next generation. And that's why I'm running to be your Prime Minister. A Prime Minister who'll be strong enough to put the priorities that matter to you and to your family first. Speaking of strong, I'm pleased to be joined by two of our new Democrats here. Olivia Chow, our MP and candidate for Trinity Spadina, a tireless advocate for children and family for over 2 decades. And of course, also Marilyn Churley, the next Member of Parliament for Beaches, East York. A long-time champion of what matters to this city and what matters to everyday Canadians. So let me begin by talking about the wrong kind of strong leadership. Then I'll say a few words about the right kind of strong leadership, and then I'll set out my party's step-by-step childcare plan. First, let's talk about leadership. Now, Mr. Harper is saying that he's a strong leader, and in some ways he is strong, because it takes a strong leader to ram through $50 billion in tax cuts to rich corporations while they ship our good-paying jobs overseas. And it took strength to break his promise to end healthcare wait times and leave 5 million Canadian families without a family doctor. And Harper's some kind of strong if he can stand by while our families choke on dirty air, including these kids, because he can't get the oil out of the tar sands fast enough. His plans for the country put the issues of the boardroom table ahead of the issues of the kitchen table, and that's wrong. Of course, it's also some kind of strong. Well, you know, tax cuts for the wealthiest people in this country might work for a few, but I don't think that they're the most important things we have to deal with today. So while Stephen Harper stands up for his boardroom buddies, I'm going to stand up for you and your family. And that's why, over the past week, I've announced my party's plans to deliver the change we need for our economy, for health care, and for the environment. On the economy, we're going to protect Canadians' jobs and stop giving tax cuts to corporations who ship our jobs overseas. And we'll make life more affordable for ordinary people by stopping the shameful rip-offs that we see and gouging by the cell companies and the banks, credit cards, the oil companies. For health care, we'll take immediate action by training doctors and nurses across the country, because there's 5 million Canadians right now who don't have access to family doctors. And for the environment, which is so important for all of the families here and for the next generation, we're going to ensure that Canada meets the challenge of climate change with tough laws that force polluters to pay. As Prime Minister, I'll work every single day to make life more affordable to you and your family, because it's been over 20 years since the average family had a real pay increase. Everyday families across our country are struggling to find good childcare and childcare that they can afford. Friends, I know that it's never easy to leave your child anywhere for 8 to 10 hours a day. You worry about what's going to happen. You shouldn't have to worry about whether your child is going to be safe or get good quality care, or whether you'll be able to pay the bill at the end of the month. Moms and dads need to know that their kids will get a great start in early education and learn the kind of environment that will encourage our kids to flourish as they grow. The Conservative program sends out $100 checks to people that don't go nearly far enough to meeting the real costs of childcare, and then they turn around and claw much of it back in taxes and lost benefits. That's why I'm announcing a child care program that you can count on. And if elected Prime Minister, my government will immediately set to work to building a national child care network. Child care that assures quality, accessible, licensed spaces available where and when you need them. The reality is that child care isn't a one-size-fits-all sort of a situation. We need flexibility in our system. And it will be a network that will provide parents with the kind of care they want in communities large and small. You know that good child care, after-school programs, give our children the help that they need, identify problems that they face so that they can make choices that don't lead them down the wrong path, for example, to violence in the schoolyard. Our child care plan will help you and your family make ends meet at the end of the month as well. We'll keep the baby bonus checks already in place, and I'll speak more about that later in the campaign. And we'll also work with provinces over time to build affordable spaces your families need from coast to coast to coast. We're committed to investing an additional $1.45 billion in the first year in expanding childcare across this country.